In Photoshop, it's always good to know how your image is going to be displayed, because if you know this, then you'll know the dimensions of the document that you need to work with. So in this video, we're going to discuss the 4 most common ways to display an image on a screen: halftone printing, inkjet printing, and continuous tone. And we're going to learn how to calculate the correct document size needed for each type of output. So first, let's discuss the dimensions of a document that will be displayed on a screen such as a monitor or a phone. What's most important in this scenario is the width and height of your document in pixels, not in resolution. So all screens have a specific number of pixels, so your document needs to have enough pixels to fill the portion of the screen where the image is going to be displayed. The resolution of the file really doesn't matter because the device is going to map a single pixel in the document to a single pixel on the screen. For example, when I post images to my blog, if I want them to be the same width as the body of the text, which is 600 pixels wide, then I would need to create a document with a width of 600 pixels to have the image be the same width as the text. It wouldn't matter what the resolution of the file is, as long as the width was 600 pixels. Now, with that said, I want to point out that today many applications that display images on screens use technology that detect the screen size of the device that the content's being viewed on and change the layout and the size of the images that are downloaded on the fly. So this technology is referred to as responsive design, and it's really powerful because it allows us to upload a single image sized for the largest screen that we think it's going to be viewed on. And then the software is going to take care of downloading the appropriate size image when the viewer clicks on that page. But still, you need to know the largest pixel count for the largest screen that you're going to display your image. Now, what about halftone printing? The most common example is going to be the printing press. Although the image might start off as a continuous tone, like a photograph, for example, in order to be printed to most conventional printing presses, the document needs to be converted into a halftone pattern. Now, the halftone pattern is made up of dots with a unique pattern for each of the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black inks. And when the dot patterns are printed, one on top of another, they create the illusion of continuous tone. But it's not, in fact, a continuous tone image. If you look at anything that's been printed, like a poster or a box of cereal, especially if you look at it underneath a magnifying glass, you're going to see these individual dots. So in Photoshop, in addition to knowing the width and height of the document that you're going to be printing, you need to know the resolution, or how many pixels per inch or pixels per centimeter, whatever your unit of measurement is, you need to print the quality that you want. And the quality that you want is going to depend on the line screen that you're going to be printing to. So on press, the line screen is heavily dependent on the quality of the ink and the paper. And this is due to, in part, what's called dot gain. So when you print on a lower quality paper, the ink tends to spread when it hits that paper, and the dots tend to bleed into one another. If we look at a newspaper as an example, because of the coarseness of that paper, you can't print with a really high line screen because the dot gain makes it difficult to hold the details. So you might be limited, for example, to an 85 line screen for a low quality paper. Whereas if you're printing to a high-end paper for a high quality fine art book or something, you might be able to print as high as a 300 line screen. So as a general rule of thumb, you need 1.5 to 2 times the line screen, called LPI, in pixels per inch, or PPI. So for example, if you're going to print to a 100 line screen, you're going to need between 150 and 200 pixels per inch. So with that in mind, when you're preparing documents to be printed to the printing press, it's really important to work with your printer, because together, you and your printer are going to decide on a line screen based on the ink and the paper. And then from there, you can decide whether you want 1.5 or 2 times the line screen in order to achieve the quality that you're looking for. Okay, next would be inkjet printing. So inkjet printers also print dots on paper, but if you look at the print under a magnifying glass, you're not going to see any halftone patterns. And this is because an inkjet printer varies the placement of very, very small dots of ink on paper. So an inkjet printer typically needs a resolution between 240 and 360 ppi, depending on the desired quality of the print. I would recommend that you print the same image at 240, 300, and 360 ppi. I find that most people can see the difference between 240 and 300, but fewer people can see the difference between 300 and 360. Of course, the viewing distance is also going to make a difference. If the viewer is an arm's distance away from the image, then you may need to print as a higher resolution than if they're going to view the print from across the room. So what about continuous tone printing? Printing to photographic paper would be an example of continuous tone printing. If you're a photographer, you might be sending images to a lab to have them printed, for example. In this case, you simply need to ask the lab what resolution they want the file, as they will know the optimal resolution needed for their printers. It's been my personal experience that they typically want something around 300 pixels per inch. So in summary, if you're creating images for screen, you need to know the total pixel count for the area of the device that you're displaying your images on. For the printing press, your document is going to need to be 1.5 to 2 times the line screen, the LPI, in resolution, which is PPI. For inkjet printers, you'll most likely use a resolution between 300 and 360 PPI. And for continuous tone printing, it's really best to ask the lab what resolution they recommend. In the next video, we'll see how to change the document size in Photoshop for specific display and output device.